Welcome to the ultimate crowdsourced personal finance show. This is your Friday Roundup.
You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
All right, guys, welcome back. This is your Friday Roundup. I'm excited to be able to tackle this Monday episode with you guys, talking a little bit more about the concept of the gap year. And it featured Noah and Becky from moneymetagame.com. And they have been on this path to FI for several years. And because of this very high savings rate that they had been able to achieve, they were able to position themselves within a relatively short period, like a 5-year window, to be able to just go ahead and take a year off relatively risk-free. So it was kind of a reorientation on the idea of retire early and move the marker from just merely retiring early to the idea of retire often and build this flexibility into your lifestyle and enjoy the benefits of your high savings rate far in advance of the time at which you're going to hit that magical 4%, that 25 times your annual savings. So I'm excited to get a chance to explore this with even more depth with my co-host Brad. Hi there, buddy. How you doing today?
Yeah, Jonathan, I'm doing well. It's a beautiful morning here. We are in week 2 of school. So my kids are still like super excited. Little Molly is off to kindergarten and she just like loves school. It's amazing. She literally did not want to come home this weekend. She wanted to go to school 7 days a week. So as a parent, that just fills your heart with joy that your kid not only isn't like dreading school, which, you know, many kids just hate to get on that bus. They're nervous, especially that first week. And not only is she not doing that, but she's just thrilled. So it's really a lot of fun.
That is awesome. I can't remember the last time I was excited to go to school. That was a really long time ago.
Yeah, well, maybe kindergarten. I don't know. But yeah, she's loving life. And yeah, otherwise things are going well. We've actually been recording a whole bunch of Monday episodes these last few days. We have some exciting guests coming up and all is well in the world.
Well, I know in my life, I finally took some action on some stuff that we had talked about almost a month ago now when Jeff came on the show and he was talking to us about how he tackled this idea of minimalism and efficiency, and he applied that to his wardrobe, and he was able to get rid of everything in his wardrobe that he determined did not allow him to look his personal best. Anything that wasn't being used, he got rid of. And the amazing part about this story is that Jeff found that as he was decluttering his life, not only did the what should I wear this morning decision become much less complicated, but when he did pick out an outfit, everything looked good because anything that didn't look good was gone, right? It totally gone. So after Jeff shared that experience with us on a past episode, I found myself in that similar situation. I'm staring at my closet and there's so many items in there that, you know, they don't look good on you. And you have that yellow shirt in your closet that you're wondering, what possible scenario did I purchase this for? Because I will never wear this. But it kind of causes you that mental anguish to get rid of it. But once you decide, I'm doing this, and take that first step, you can go through this decluttering process and it becomes strangely cathartic. So I just got rid of 20 to 30 garments, slacks and shirts, and they're sitting in my car waiting for me to deliver to either a thrift store or a consignment store, something like that. And that's actually weird. I'm actually hitting a new resistance hurdle because my optimizing mind desperately wants to itemize them, I guess, or somehow get credit for them. And I haven't gotten to the point where I could essentially just drop them off without tracking it in some way, shape, or form. And so that's now my new hurdle. It's not actually, am I willing to get rid of it? Because I'm totally willing to get rid of everything, but I'm like kind of struggling with the most optimized way to do it.
So when you say optimize, I guess I'm confused. You're not talking about like getting credit for donating them, obviously, but like, are you saying you want to just track exactly how many things that you're clearing out? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, actually, I am talking about getting credit for it, but in like a monetary sort of sense. So if you're in a high enough marginal tax bracket and your itemizations go over the standard deduction, you could potentially get 25 cents back on the dollar on your donations. And so since I know that intellectually, and I think there is a chance that I will go over the standard deduction if I itemize this year due to donations I make through my church, I kind of want to see whether or not there's a way to bring some of that back, because these clothes aren't, they're good quality. They just don't fit me anymore. They just don't add value to my life.
That makes sense. You should be logging them in that case. And when I said, obviously, you're not talking about, I didn't mean that. It's funny how we have like fundamental differences in how we think sometimes. Like I just assumed you were logging them. Hey, we're donating to Goodwill and it's 10 shirts, 8 pairs of pants, and 4 sweaters. I would definitely recommend doing that. I think just for tax purposes, that's the easiest way to do it. Nobody cares if it's a shirt from Gap or if it's a shirt from Dolce & Gabbana. Just jot down approximately what you're donating and just have that information for when you prepare your tax returns. There are definitely ways to take that itemization and to use it for your donations to charities. So just having that information, if you're going to use an accountant, they would definitely appreciate that. And you should actually get a receipt from whomever you donate it to. So just keeping that information just as best you can. Don't go crazy and figure out how much you paid for it originally. That's largely irrelevant. It's just take a loose inventory of what you're donating, and that'll help certainly come tax time.
And as an accountant, how do you actually track it? Do you just put it in a little tab in your Excel sheet? Do you have a file that you put these receipts that you get from Goodwill or Diversity, or how do you track these sorts of things?
I'm laughing here out loud because the answer is I give it to my wife, who's the real CPA in the family. So, but seriously, we have a file folder for each tax year. So she just tosses the receipt in there, and I believe she keeps like a real rudimentary Excel spreadsheet of just approximately what we donated. It's conceivable, in all honesty, Jonathan, I have not looked at those receipts in a long time, just because Laura is fantastic at this. So I certainly don't need to look over her shoulder, but it's possible that you actually put on the actual receipt, like what you donated. So it might be at the time we give to, I don't know, Vietnam Veterans of America. They come and pick it up at our door, and we just jot down on the receipt they gave us that we gave 8 pairs of pants and 4 sweaters or something like that. And I guess Laura then does her magic and whatever the CPAs do to look up approximately what each of those are worth. So I think it's pretty straightforward, but just like anything, it's easier to keep records at the time you do something, just like with your finances. It's difficult to go back and figure out your net worth at a certain time or track your financials for an entire year if you're starting in September. If you start on January 1st, well, it's pretty easy, but to go back and reinvent the wheel is kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And someone in our Facebook group actually suggested that I just take a picture of whatever it is that I'm donating. That way, for my mental records, I had an idea of what we actually gave, which I think is maybe something you could pair with that, especially if you use some sort of cloud storage. And the other idea that I had, and this came from Dylan and Sarah, they suggested that I also look at 2 different stores, which I mentioned earlier, Clothes Mentor and Plato's Closet. And with Plato's Closet, you can actually go in and type in your zip code and find one that's close to you. But they will actually, in some cases, pay you for your clothes. So instead of just getting the deduction, you may actually be able to get some cash up front. Now, they only take what they deem to be high quality, high value products. They're not going to necessarily take everything, but it might be a place to start. And then you can, that whatever they don't take, you could then take to your thrift shop.
All right, Jonathan. So you said previously on an episode a while back that you had something in the vicinity of like 3 closets full of clothes, and you were a little bit ashamed of it. I remember a couple of minutes ago, you said about 20 garments, I think you said. So, probably 10 shirts, 10 pairs of pants approximately. That pales in comparison to 3 closets full. Do you find resistance when you're doing this? Or are you just going through and just saying, hey, look, this entire closet full of stuff, or legitimately, in all likelihood, you could get rid of 2 closets full of items and never bat an eyelash? How are you going into this mentally? I think is what I would like to know.
This is a fascinating question about mindset and about the need to have stuff and then the fear of getting rid of stuff, because you think at some point down the road, there might be a place that you might, in a very, very rare chance, need that particular item. Even though you don't want to wear it today, you probably won't want to wear it tomorrow. And you can't exactly visualize the circumstance in which you'll want to wear it 2 or 3 months from now. It's still, my natural instinct is, well, that's just wasteful to get rid of it, which is why I end up purchasing new stuff, but never discarding old stuff, which is how you end up in a situation like this. But once you start doing this, and frankly, I'll be honest with you, I just got rid of the low-hanging fruit. This was just the obvious neglected clothing that I will never wear again. I'm quite positive of that. So it was very easy for me to get rid of it. But that was a baby step. Those were easy targets. And now that I've done that, it is kind of addictive, man. I'm going to be very honest. You can change your addictions in life, and you can move it from something that's making your life more complicated to something that's making your life more efficient. And so I think there's some overarching themes there, but it goes right along with this idea. You've mentioned that you and Laura love doing this idea of creating this oasis in your house. And so right now, the office that we record in right now, that is my personal oasis. And this entire home that we have right now, this room is in perfect condition. Now, just outside this room, there's a pile of, again, just stuff that I got to figure out where to put it. The hallway was sacrificed so that I could make this oasis happen. Not everything got put in its exact home, but we were able to force this one space into an oasis. And it's so nice. It's so amazing. It feels so good to be in it that you want to get more of that same feeling. And so that stuff is getting put up. And as hopefully this concept spreads to the entire rest of our house. And let me tell you, this is not on my wife. My wife would have our entire house be an oasis all day, every day. I am the rate limiting step here. This is 100% me. So getting me on board and getting me excited about this idea of having a house that's always clean is a huge deal. So she's excited about where this is going. And my getting rid of the clothes and donating the stuff that we're not using is feeding directly into that.
Yeah, that is very, very interesting. If it were me and I had 3 closets full of clothes, I think I know you like making games out of things. So you've described that before. I would toss all my clothes into 2 of the closets. So condense as much as I could just into 2 of the closets and leave that third one empty. And then every time I wore something over 6 or 12 month period, I would put it into that third empty closet. And then at the end of that, whatever period you want, let's say a year, you know what you've worn in the last year. And then legitimately everything in the other 2 closets, if you haven't worn it in a year, you're probably not going to wear it. And you could basically toss or donate all of those items. I would just make a fun little game out of it just to see like, okay, I have these 400 items and I actually wore 30 of them in a given calendar year. Maybe those other 370 aren't terribly useful. I would do something fun like that because it's not all that fun to go into your closet and just randomly toss stuff that you spend money on. But when you see, and the proof is in the pudding, that you didn't wear it in a year, all right, maybe it's time to give it up.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. There's like a strong chance I may do that. Currently, I'm in the process of creating large batches of stuff that fill up the entire back of the car, and I'm just taking a single picture of it and posting it on our Facebook group so I can solicit a few high fives and pats on the back. You know, it feels good. But I'm huge into the gamification of everything in life that could be viewed as a chore, but when you reframe it, it turns it into something that's fun and that's a challenge. And so that feeds into my own need to do that. I could probably do that. I could probably get everything into one closet now. I'd probably be bulging at the seams and then slowly start moving stuff that I'm actually using over. And to be honest, the sad thing is, realistically, even though I have all this clothing, I probably wear 2 or 3 pairs of shorts, 2 or 3 t-shirts, 2 or 3 pairs of sandals, maybe 1 pair of jeans. And that would take care of me about 90% of the year. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And we're talking about taking action here based on things we talked about in past episodes. I want to just kind of report real quickly just 2 items that I took action on. So Aldi, right? We joked that I've never been to Aldi, and you and Joel said that I have to go, no doubt about it. And what's funny is my buddy Matt, who listens to the podcast, said, "You're never going to Aldi, right?" I could just hear it in your voice. And just basically to tell all you guys, Laura and I actually went. So we definitely enjoyed Aldi quite a bit. I certainly see the allure. I think we'd have to go back more often to really like get it, if you will, just because things seem to change there pretty frequently. And maybe we're kind of slaves to habit or convenience of getting everything at our supermarket. But I understand it. But I have to say, we also went to, there's another German grocer here in Richmond that just opened called Lidl. Lidl. And we went there, Laura and I, and really loved it. So I have to say we did like it a little bit better than Aldi, but just at least taking action and trying something different. So the other thing was that I had mentioned on the episode with Alan Donegan that I was going to try to sell my comic books, baseball cards, collectibles, all this stuff that I have. And I just wanted to give everybody an update that I am in process of that. Molly and I went up to the attic and brought everything down, and I found a website called sellmycomicbooks.com, and I've been in touch with the guy who owns it. His name is Ashley, and I think there's a high likelihood I'm going to sell some of my comics through there, and found a local guy who buys collectibles. So I am taking my own advice here. That's kind of the moral of the story is we always tell you out there, the audience, just take action, do something to make your life better, more efficient, or save money, make money in this case. And please rest assured that I'm taking my own advice and really taking action on this. So I hope to have an update with maybe some numbers in the next couple of weeks.
All right, so today let's hop right back into this and let's go back and talk just for a few minutes about our episode that we did on Monday with Noah and Becky from moneymetagame.com. And I loved everything about that episode. I loved that, first of all, these are two individuals that found this path at a relatively young age. They are at the point where they can say, you know what, we didn't make any financial mistakes. And it's both encouraging and motivating to me to see these, I guess you would say this millennial generation that found this concept of FI probably around the same time that you and I did, Brad, but they were young enough when they realized that this could be a reality that they just didn't make any financial mistakes and they're just getting to benefit from that in their late 20s, early 30s. It's remarkable how much momentum you can get with just a few years of a high savings rate under your belt.
Yeah, and I think that's important not only for the millennials and second generation FIRE, like we're always talking about, but for everybody else, people who aren't 26 and 27 and have done everything right. People who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s even, right? You can make so much progress in a short period of time. I mean, just look at Noah and Becky. They're the perfect example. They have gotten past FU money. They have, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of like 10 years of runway, basically, of their expenses. And they've only been at this for 4 or 5 years. And why can't you do that? I think that's the real message. This is not just for millennials. This is for everybody. And even if you've made terrible, calamitous mistakes financially, well, who cares what happened in the past? Just make moves today to make it better. So I definitely wanted to start kind of my analysis there because it really is so important. I don't want people tuning out when they hear, oh, here's some 26-year-old guy and girl who have done everything right, because a lot of people can't relate to that. But people can relate to the fact that, all right, in 4 and 5 years respectively, they have changed their entire lives and made it so that they're not even worried about leaving their extraordinarily safe and lucrative professions in a nice home they've built for themselves in Seattle. They're not worried about leaving that for a year, giving up their jobs and traveling the country and potentially the world. That is a really important position of power, and I think we can all gain something from that.
Couldn't agree more. One of the things that we've been very intentional about is the way we've tried to frame this conversation is to be accessible for the people that have never heard of the concept of FI before or FIRE before, and for them to be able to find this path and to hop on board and completely pull like what Joel calls a 180, a FI 180, and quickly reclaim control of their life and their finances. But what's really interesting to me is at the same time, what we've seen over and over again is that people that have been in this community for 5 or 10 years that in theory understand all these tools don't totally realize the amount of power that they've had just by having had a high savings rate for just a few years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And this limiting belief that you don't have freedom until you get to 25 times your annual expenses. And that's the part that this episode highlighted and made crystal clear is that no, you have this power within a year or two of making this choice. This is a continuum, and you're continually gaining more and more power as you're able to increase your savings rate and as you're able to create some space between your day-to-day expenses and your savings. And framing it slightly differently, as you get farther and farther down this path and you start reaching these milestones of FI. And I just thought it was remarkable that people that have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years worth of expenses under their belt, they're at 10x. They're halfway to FI. This episode was the light bulb that said, oh, wow, I'm burnt out at my job. And I thought I still had another 6 or 7 years left. But if I wanted to, this is a lever I could pull right now. I could take a gap year. I can use creativity, flexibility, and the fact that the power is on my side of the court, and I can make a decision now that's in my best interest and my family's best interest. And really, when I dialed in on, I thought Becky had one of the most insightful comments when she was talking about how she almost went too far too fast. And when you've been in school and you get one of these graduate degrees that requires, 6 years of school plus, and you come out and you're in a high pressure job and you're very good at it, it's easy to excel and move up the ranks. And I can visualize how as all this responsibility is stacking up on you so quickly, it's possible to not control where your career is going and just wake up one morning and realize that you're getting burnt out and you're overwhelmed by the amount of tasks that you're responsible for. And you can get buried underneath this avalanche of emails and to-do list and making sure that people show up on time, this mid-level managerial type responsibilities. And a lot lot of times, especially in Becky's situation, that was all being handed to her also in a very high stress, emotionally charged job of labor and delivery. And it was just overwhelming. And so many people are tied to the hamster wheel and can't separate themselves out from that. They have to be there to pay their bills, which almost makes it worse. Becky was fortunately in this position of financial strength where she was able to make a very honest decision and say, this is not sustainable for me. I don't enjoy this anymore. And if I keep trying to do what I'm doing now, I won't be able to keep doing this job. I'm going to be or am burnt out. And because her and Noah had this plan in place, she could start talking about this idea of just stepping away. And I think that regardless of what you did with that year, I love the fact that we can now talk about how they're going to be traveling around the US and around the world, but just the fact that you can step out of your current environment and evaluate it objectively instead of from the subjective view of how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to keep the lights on? How am I going to feed my family? And how are we going to have health insurance? This is a radical reorientation.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, Jonathan. And I have to say, Becky impressed me so much because you can see how this has been a process for her, this entire concept of FI. And clearly she's totally on board now. But it's just Noah is clearly an optimizer. He's like the two of us, you more so than me, certainly. But you and I can certainly relate to Noah. But I think Becky is much more relatable to regular people, to everybody else. And I think that is what's so powerful about their story.
Yeah, I listen to all these episodes with my wife, and it's always interesting to me when she leans in. I've used that phrase before, but I know when I have her attention, you can tell. And when Becky was sharing her perspective on what their journey looked like, my wife leaned in. She was interested. She doesn't relate necessarily to you or my perspective, even though we try to be very relatable, quote unquote. And Noah, an awesome guy, awesome story. Like I'm passionate about the life hacks that he has. For my wife, it's just, it's that pat on the head type mentality. You guys are these optimizers, gamers, that sort of thing. But Becky's decision tree made sense to her. And my wife was interested in the fact that she was on board with this process. And it validated some of the choices that Noah was making and some of the choices that you and I have made up to this point, to hear Becky's perspective on how she approached it. And I think there's something to that. I think it's one of the reasons that we've been so intentional about going out and trying to find people that have approached this path from a different perspective, because all of us are looking for somebody that we can relate to.
Yeah, totally hear you. And I mean, Becky, she described, she came from a conservative family. She had to explain to her parents what they were doing. And it was met with some resistance. But the real powerful thing is Becky and Noah, they have no fear about this. That was just so remarkable to me that they're embarking on this crazy journey that it would appear to most people. You and I don't think it's crazy, clearly, because they've taken this power back in their lives and they have the ability to do something that other people, even their own family, might view as crazy. But they have no concerns. What a wonderful position to be in at 27 years old. It's really mind-blowing.
Yeah, and I put that exact question out to our Facebook group, and Jeff gave us his feedback, and he said, almost done with the episode, but it's very inspiring to hear their journey. One thing that really stands out for me, and like you said, Brad, they really don't feel much fear about leaving their jobs and getting new ones after their gap year. So many of us feel stuck and maybe move on to other jobs right away without ever taking time out just to enjoy life for a while. And cheers to Mr. and Mrs. Money Metagame. But the power of the reset button, highlight that. That's what this episode is about. Take a gap year, don't take a gap year, but do you realize how much power there is when you realize that you're unhappy or unable to continue in your current working environment, and you realize that if you were to step out, nothing stops working. You have enough to cover your life expenses for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can keep counting, obviously.
But are you sure you want to keep going?
Well, if it's for Spanish, I can go to 10. But you have so much time to figure things out. And I think when you add that to maybe one of the episodes that we've talked about in the past, like ESI Money, teaching us the value of networking or how to career hack, those tools go hand in hand. And so if there are aspects of your job that you don't like, Brad, I know you've alluded to this many times, this idea of carving out aspects of your job that you do like and just doing that. And I will say that sometimes that is a possibility to do that in your immediate job, but many times it's not. At that point, you're too far in it. You're not able to extract out just the roles that you want. But if you're able to step out of that job, you can then very easily look for a job that will give you 98% of exactly what you're looking for. And you get to dictate the terms because you don't have to say yes until you find the right opportunity.
And you had an important point kind of buried in there, which is it doesn't have to be the gap year. Sure, in a perfect world, we could upend our lives and then take this wonderful year traveling. But you can find yourself in a position where you're unhappy with your job and you can still be in that position of power and you don't have to travel. And what I mean by that is Becky decided she loves being a nurse. There's certain aspects that she loves, but ultimately what happened was she kept getting these promotions and it just got to a point where she was doing a significant number of things that she just didn't enjoy. So hit the reset button. And that's fine. Like, you clearly don't have to take this trip to set the reset button. You don't need to tell your family and friends why you're leaving your job. You can just leave it and have that position of power. And like Jonathan said, go into another job and do the aspects that you enjoy. As Becky said, there certainly are many, many aspects of being a labor and delivery nurse that she just genuinely loved and felt that she was providing value to the world. But I suspect there was a lot of the administrative and paperwork and all this other nonsense that just didn't do it for her, right? And she can now just say, okay, I'm leaving my current job, my current hospital, and I'm going somewhere else. And this is what I want to do, even if it's quote unquote a step back on the treadmill of job promotions and things like that. Because who cares? At the end of the day, when you have a significant savings rate and you're going to reach FI in X number of years, does it really matter about maximizing every dollar like every other person off the street is trying to do? Because they're spending every dollar. So that means they can buy a new BMW this year or they can go out to super expensive restaurants. Well, Becky just cares about day-to-day happiness in this case. And they're saving a boatload of money. And they were saving it 6 months ago. And when they come back in 12 months, they're going to start saving money up again then. So it's not this calamitous issue where you need to maximize every single dollar to pay your bills or to feed this lifestyle that you want. It's just, how can I maximize happiness out of my day-to-day?
No, but I think this presents like this interesting inflection point for our community. And as we implement this idea of gamification, unlike the rigid hierarchy of maybe baby steps 1 through 7, this is a pick your own adventure story where you get to design your future, right? I think that's where the checkpoints of FI that we talked about in a prior episode come in. Those become these really cool ideas that other people have done that now that you know it's a possibility, you can consider it. And then if you decide to execute on it, you get to talk about it to the people in our community, and then we get to live vicariously through you and then maybe make similar decisions on our own personal journey. And I love the idea of the gap year. I think that's certainly now a checkpoint of FI. I love the idea of figuring out a game plan for the gap year to maybe hit 5 or 6 or 7 or maybe 20 different countries that you want to go to on that period of time. And you start learning about these concepts like geo arbitrage. You travel to a place where even after you figured out what your baseline cost of life would be in the United States, you find a country where you could stay for 6 months where your cost of living would be 50% less than that. These really cool ideas that other people have figured out, and because they're finally willing to share it, and because we have a big enough platform to get this information to you guys, you no longer don't know what you don't know. You're overwhelmed by all the things you never considered. And now it's just a matter of what do you want to do? And coming back to our community for just a second, not only do we have this diversity of experiences in life, but we also have a remarkable diversity in our community of skill sets. I mean, we have software developers, we have app developers, we have medical professionals and accountants, we have engineers, tons of engineers, and a myriad of other job professions that I couldn't even begin to categorize. But with regards to this particular concept, there's got to be a way, Brad, to create a framework or an app that we can tie a bunch of these great concepts together and we can continue to gamify this process. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if there was some sort of crowdsourced community app that we had that listed out all the different milestones of FI that we talked about earlier, all the checkpoints of FI that we've been slowly touching on, starting from the time that you're 13 and you start looking at scholarships that you could start positioning yourself for, like the Caddy Scholarship that we mentioned, which to me is the most game-changing scholarship program of all time that I had never heard of. But once you get past that point and you start getting to the place where you start getting into travel rewards and you've knocked out some of these other things, you start lining up the different countries that you want to hit. And the app kind of steers you in a methodical thought process that's crowdsourced because other people have done this and have streamlined it, and shares with you the secret hotspots of different countries that you could go to. And it just kind of it games it out for you, and you get these achievement badges along the way that lets you know that you're hitting your goal. Maybe you could even pair it on the back end to something like a Personal Capital or a Mint or a YNAB. You could pair it to one of these personal finance budgeting type softwares. And I don't know, it could kind of just partner with you along this journey, and it would feed into that gamification aspect that I get so excited about.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, that sounds absolutely awesome. And I think there was some talk on the Facebook group about creating an app. We have a bunch of people in the community. I know one of our community members, Steven, is a developer, and he expressed some interest in kind of taking the lead for this. I think it would be awesome. I would love to, instead of getting that dopamine hit for going out and buying something silly, to get some kind of positive brain chemicals when you get a badge or hit a checkpoint or hit a milestone. Like, I think that would be really cool. Yeah, I'd love to hear. I mean, maybe we'll post in the Facebook group, Jonathan, just to see if would people be interested in that? Like, I think it would be fun, and I'd love to further the community in that regard.
It could also offer things like sharing when the latest meetups are in different places around the country. So it would be a portal for us to connect our community on the devices that everybody has. I mean, I would say the one thing that our entire community has in common is a smartphone, right? Everything else is different, but everybody's got a smartphone.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And yeah, I just wanted to touch really quickly on that Caddy scholarship just before we close up here with Noah and Becky. That was the most amazing thing I've ever heard. And goodness, I wonder how many of these life hacks are out there in the entire FI community just generally. Like, people are sitting on these little silos of information that if we all had access to that, how powerful would the FI community be? And I suspect this is one of thousands of these things. Sure, maybe not thousands of scholarships that are going to get you a full ride to Northwestern or Purdue, but I know personally a neighbor of mine was telling me he's a doctor, and the state he grew up in, they had some kind of loan forgiveness if you went to a state school. And I know that's vague because I don't have all the details in front of me, but I suspect there are many, many, many thousands of these life hacks that we could all kind of accumulate. And maybe that could go in the app too, Jonathan. I think something like that, a repository of all that information, would just be ultra, ultra valuable for all of us.
It would have a geo arbitrage tool in it, talking about how you were planning on using these tax optimization strategies and which states are the most teed up for that. And it's crazy. It's not just me or you that don't know what we don't know. It's just a blind spot. It's just things that you'd never considered. And people, due to their own personal experiences, come up with these one-off amazing pieces of wisdom that we just need to create a portal that we can learn about these and then redistribute them to other people that can benefit. And Frugal Professor, who has a blog at frugalprofessor.com, left a comment on that article saying basically the same thing. The Caddy Scholarship is one of the most unbelievable life hacks I've ever heard of. And he forwarded it to his nephew, who is a senior in high school and currently caddies. So these things help people where they live. And even if you don't use them directly, someone else will absolutely benefit from this. All right, Brad. Well, I'm super excited. We have our 2 finalists for the side hustle competition. So the person that's going to get the free coaching from Alan Donegan is going to be one of these 2 individuals. So this week, guys, I'm going to play the 2 voicemails for these 2 finalists, and the voting will be open from Friday morning when this episode releases to Monday evening. And starting next week, we will have an announcement about who is going to be getting the coaching from Alan Donegan. That's when this process is really going to get started. It's going to be very exciting. There were a pretty significant number of people in our community that actually went to the Alan Donegan coaching pop-up school in Longmont, Colorado, being hosted by obviously Alan Donegan and partnering with Mr. Money Mustache. And first of all, I thought it was really cool that so many of you were able to go check that out. And for those of you that weren't, they did post a live stream on Facebook that you could actually watch some of that event. So for those of you that wanted to get a taste of some of the content that was presented there, definitely go check out episode 30 featuring the side hustle with Alan Donegan. But it was really cool because I went and watched part of the live stream from one of the days as I was able to get a chance. And I saw Alan featuring Dennis the Lasagna Guy, which was one of the most inspirational stories in that episode, Brad.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love that. And yeah, I'd love to actually see Alan tell the story as opposed to just hear him. So yeah, I watched some of that feed as well, and it's incredibly interesting. And it's wonderful that they were able to post it on Facebook like that. So I know Alan mentioned it in our Facebook group, right, Jonathan?
Yes, he did set up the link in our Facebook group. So if you want to join the group, just go to choosefi.com/Facebook and fill out the information there. We'll send you a link to the private group. But we'll also be connecting with Alan within the next week or so to figure out what the next step is and bring him back on the show to really get this thing going. So I know how many of you appreciated Alan's insight, and Brad and I cannot wait to reconnect with him and start working on this side hustle. So guys, let me go ahead and announce our 2 finalists here. For those of you that are in the group that are voted, you already saw the results, but to the rest of our audience, our first finalist is Rachel.
Hi guys, my name is Rachel and I am so excited to be leaving this voicemail to enter the giveaway to work with Alan. I've been listening to the podcast for a while and I love it. Thank you so much, Brad and Jonathan, for all that you do to inspire and motivate the rest of us on the FI journey. And I legitimately almost fell off my bike when I heard about this giveaway to work with Alan and you guys. So a little bit about me and why I want a side hustle. My husband and I got started on the path to financial independence about 6 months ago when I randomly picked up Dave Ramsey's book. Our experience with Dave Ramsey is similar to what you guys had talked about on the podcast, meaning that I really loved his book and I read it in a day, actually. I read his second book really quickly as well, but while we loved his whole idea of maintaining a frugal lifestyle and living within your means, and we were fired up about budgeting and saving up for retirement, we also realized that of his 7 steps, we were on step 6. And step 7 was be rich and live. So we kind of had this feeling of, well, now what? Apparently we're doing it right, but we want to make it go faster. So we were a little lost and we didn't feel like his books outlined where we were going. So that's about when I started looking around and I found your podcast and I just totally fell in love with everything that's talked about on here. So part of the reason that I would like to do a side hustle is I really love my nonprofit job and I don't want to quit just to make more money, but I don't make a lot in nonprofit. So I would really love to increase my income and pursue something more entrepreneurial. I do work full time, but I have a very flexible schedule and I often work from home, usually 2 to 3 days a week. So I know you guys are looking for someone who has the time and the energy to pursue a side hustle, and I definitely have both of those things. My idea would be to open a cake baking and decorating operation out of my home. So here are the things that I already have. I already have the time to do this because I work from home 2 to 3 weekdays already, and I have a very flexible schedule, like I said, and my nights and weekends are free. I estimate that I have about 25 to 30 hours to spend side hustling during the work week alone, not including weekend time. I definitely have the energy and passion to do this because I've been doing it for the last 10 years since high school. So I won't burn out, but I just haven't been paid for it before. I've only asked friends or family to cover the costs when I make stuff for them. And I already have clients lined up, individuals who have expressed interest, and the organization I work for is interested as well. And I do have the time to go on the podcast. That will not be a problem. I'm a very transparent person, and I love the idea of sharing my own struggles and mistakes and what I'm learning. I think we're all in this together. So I want to share so that everyone else listening can too, because I know that's been very helpful for me, listening to other people's stories. What I need help with is setting up and dealing with taxes, retirement accounts, that kind of thing. Some of the logistics of dealing with the health department and licensing, if that's even necessary. A little bit of help managing maybe how to balance a side hustle and this on the side, and then how to go about setting up how to order cakes and maybe a website and delivering, that kind of thing. Some of the logistical items, basically all the good stuff that Alan and his team are already pros at. I think that should be all you need from me, so I will sign off, but I just wanted to take this time to say a huge thank you again for all the FI advice and motivation you guys are putting out there on the podcast. You guys are awesome, and I feel lucky to be part of this community. So thank you.
And our other finalist is Talus.
Hey, Brad and Jonathan, this is Talus. I am extremely excited about the most recent podcast episode, the Friday Roundup, where Alan made an incredible offer to do this pop-up school coaching one-on-one. I have been listening from the beginning, and my husband and I have been making tons of changes to how we save, how we spend, how we invest, and let's just say we are well down the rabbit hole of choosing FI. So I would love to pitch my idea to Alan. I would love to receive this coaching. I used to teach dance, ballroom dance full-time. That was my full-time hustle. I was competing professionally and doing really well doing that. And when I went back to school to get my master's for dance, I focused heavily on the benefits of dancing for people with Parkinson's disease. That's something that's touched my life personally. And there's actually quite a bit of evidence to show the tremendous benefits of dance for Parkinson's. Since graduating, I can now stay home with my son, who's 1, but I am still teaching on the side. I'm offering classes for people with Parkinson's, and I get hired to speak at conferences that are here in the Midwest. But the first question that I get asked when I'm speaking is, can you please come to my town and offer a class? And that's something that's really hard for me to do right now. So I would love Alan's help in helping me franchise this, helping me teach other people how to offer my methods so that I can help as many people as possible with Parkinson's and offer these classes well beyond what I'm able to do on my own right now. So huge fan of the show. I would love to be chosen for this. I am super committed. I have the time, I have the energy, I have the drive. Again, my name is Tallis, and I hope so much to hear back from you guys soon. Good luck with the remainder of the show. Keep it going. Keep it coming. We love it. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay, to Rachel and Tallis, let me start by saying how thrilled we are to get a chance to feature your voicemails on this episode as our finalist. We couldn't be more excited for both of you and just wanted to pass along our sincere enthusiasm for both of your projects. Regardless of which one of you ends up getting the coaching and participating with us on the show, we hope that both of you will benefit from the journey. We really want this to build from the ground up. We think that the tools that Alan is going to show us how to use are going to be so beneficial, not only to you, but also to our listening audience. These are things that I will be using in my own life and in my own business. And these are certainly things that are not going to be unique to this specific situation. Rather, it's going to be a framework that you can operate from as you grow your own side hustle. And actually, this is kind of funny. This is a great place to insert a little bit of a sidebar, Brad. It's come to my attention that outside of the FI community, maybe this word side hustle has a little bit of a negative connotation. I was actually talking to a neighbor about his, and I used the word side hustle, and he said, well, I wouldn't call it a side hustle. It's my business. And it struck me that to him, side hustle just didn't feel like an appropriate word.
Jonathan, I have to somewhat sheepishly admit that I have always disliked the phrase side hustle. I love the concept, clearly, but for some reason, and it might just be, it just struck me as wrong, or I don't know, I'm getting older and it just was a weird phrase for me or something. I think I've gotten used to it a little bit more. So I think it might just be like literally the phrase, clearly not the concept. Like I'm not sure that anybody would have an issue with, hey, I want to work on something that I enjoy or have a passion for, and in the hopes of growing it into a business. I can't imagine many sane people are going to disagree with that. So I think it might actually just be the word side hustle. Like it always just struck me as like this kind of like oddball millennial type thing that they said. And I just never got it. But yeah, so if that gives any flavor into your conversation there, maybe that's where they were coming from as well.
Yeah, it's definitely just a matter of perspective. Now, I do not consider myself a millennial, although even more than you, I am like right on the cusp of truly being one. But certainly it was eye-opening that the way I naturally perceive that word is, oh, it's this cool thing that you can do on the side. And it actually gives you more options. To somebody else could be like, side hustle. So it was just eye-opening, and it allowed me to, I guess, broaden my perspective on how maybe other people view something that I get so excited about. I certainly don't mind that somebody else thinks that side hustle is a dirty word. It was just weird. I just assumed that everybody would love it. And then when someone didn't, I was like, wow, I need to maybe go back and reflect on my life, I guess. And then I still thought about it. I was like, I'm still totally okay with it, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's funny. I have just always despised that term, but like in fairness, I really do despise it a lot less now than I ever have. Like when I first heard it, I'm like, why would you ever call something a side? It just sounded like so childish to me. Like that's what it is. It sounded childish. I don't know.
Because I always know when Brad is like filtering things, like if you get Brad unfiltered, it's just accountant rage. If you get Brad filtered, you'll get some sort of like mildly tamped down answer like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. But you know. He knows how he feels. Seething with the uninhibited rage of 1,000 accountants filing TPS reports.
That sounds about right. Yeah, I've got a problem, I guess.
All right. Let's see. It's interesting. Since we've latched onto it as a full-on pillar. I mean, would you have said the business is a pillar of FI?
No, I don't know. I'm not
feel
sure
comfortable saying
there's no better phrase.
Yeah,
that's kind of taken hold. You know.
Yeah, I don't think I would have said that business is a pillar of FI, but I think like the side hustle, the bar to entry is lower. You know.
Yeah.
Side hustle
Yeah.
could be make you an extra $1,000 to $3,000 a year, or it can make $1 million a year. I mean, but it doesn't usually start there. It just starts as something that you're doing with your free time. It doesn't have necessarily the corporate structure attached to it. It's something that's just a dream. You wake up, you have notes, you write it down. The next morning, you're like, let me give it a shot. And then just due to creativity and being willing to put the little bit of time in, you're able to get this thing up and running. Okay, guys, sidebar ended, soapbox over. Let's go ahead and let's feature some stuff here. Let's bring on some of our in-house experts. In lieu of the fact that we are now talking about the side hustle and this thing is about to get rolling, as you guys know, we're going to be working very closely with Alan Donegan on the side hustle competition. And we're also going to be working very closely with Keith from The Wealthy Accountant. Keith has offered to just help us flesh this out and walk us through a lot of the important pieces that you need to consider with regards to tax strategy as you create a side hustle or business. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to play a voicemail that we got from Alex and that we forwarded over to Keith, and he has already gotten back to us with a response. So give me just a second, Brad. I'm going to go and pull this up.
Hi, Brad and Jonathan. Love the podcast and just had a quick question I thought I'd send your way. I have a little side hustle business doing landscaping work outside of my 9 to 5, and I just kind of came across the idea of some of these retirement plans that are accessible to self-employed individuals, solo 401k, SEP IRA, and a simple IRA. And there may be others that I'm not aware of. It's very new to me. And so I just was curious if that was something that you or any of your in-house experts had experience with or input on, kind of the best route forward for me to maybe most effectively save some of this additional income I have coming in. Thanks.
All right. Now, Brad probably has some input on that, but we also sent this over to Keith as well, who is absolutely unequivocally the most qualified person I can think of to tackle this question. And he got back to us, and here's his response.
Hello, Alex. This is Keith at The Wealthy Accountant. Jonathan sent over your questions on having a retirement account with a side gig doing landscaping. You mentioned a couple of retirement accounts, the simple IRA and the solo 401k, and I think both of those are good choices depending on the facts and circumstances that affect you. I also don't know if you're a small side gig doing this as a sole proprietorship on Schedule C of your personal return. I'm going to assume that. And you could also be maybe an LLC treated as an S Corp, and then you'd be getting a W-2 wage. It will make a difference in calculating how much you can put into these retirement accounts. The first thing I want to get to, though, is some limitations. So with a solo 401k, for example, you are allowed to actually put in $18,000 dollar for dollar, which means you can have $18,000 of profit, put the whole $18,000 in, and you can also do 25% matching. So again, if you're, let's say, an LLC treated as an S Corp, if you have $100,000 of income, you could actually have $25,000 as matching. You could have $18,000 as withheld from the W-2 paycheck, and that would all go into the retirement account, the 401k. The catch to this whole thing is that if you have a 401k at your current job, you cannot exceed that $18,000 limit. If you're age 50 or older, you can actually put in $6,000 more, so $24,000. The limit, though, is going to be all those 401ks combined. So you can actually put into a 401k $54,000 per person, $60,000 if you're age 50 or older. So there is quite a bit of room to put money in, but you have to make sure that if you're at work and you're maximizing that account out, that you're not going to be doing more again with another 401k. It would have to be taken out before the due date of the return, or there would be really a double taxation of some money that's coming out. A simple IRA can sometimes sidestep that a little bit because you can have an IRA as well as your 401ks. If your work retirement plan is a 403B or a 457, you might be able to double dip in there a little bit as well. Because of all the complexities with this, I think there's a lot of opportunity here, but I think the best answer I can give you is that a solo 401k or a simple IRA is a good idea. You can also hire a spouse and pay them as well and kind of double these numbers if you want. But I think the real thing we should do here is we should talk really nice to Brad and Jonathan and convince them to have me do a full podcast where I just drill down into retirement accounts and talk about all these peculiarities and the facts and circumstances that would change what you can and cannot do. Maximizing these accounts can be very lucrative from a personal finance as well as a tax standpoint. So I think my answer to you is good for a start, but I'm very leery to go any deeper than that just in case there's some facts that I'm not aware of. But if you can talk Jonathan and Brad into it, I'm more than willing to do a podcast on this as well. I hope that helps and gives you at least a good start. If not, you'll just have to talk the guys into getting me in. And you have yourself a great day, and hope to hear from you soon again.
What do you think, Brad? Can Alex talk us into bringing Keith back on the show?
Yeah, he twisted our arm. That's a real tough one. I would absolutely love to have Keith on talking about that on a full episode. So yeah, we can pretty much set that in stone right now.
And we'll probably tee that up. I'm thinking we'll probably try and see what Keith's availability is and bring him on just after we figured out our side hustle situation and gotten a little bit more of the facts on the ground with regards to that. Because I think that will, if we can just tie some strings to that as well, that'll be very useful both for us at a personal level, but also it'll help build that story as well. I have a life hack here from Noah. Obviously, you guys are no stranger to Noah, and we've been benefiting from his decision to do this gap year, but he is also our in-house expert for everything life hack related. So this is one talking about movie tickets.
Hey everyone, this is Noah from Money Metagame with another life hack. This one will be interesting to anyone who likes to go to the movies. We all know the cheapest way to watch movies is through a streaming service like Netflix, but if you're anything like us, then you might find yourself at the movie theater to see the latest movie every so often. Today's life hack is a two-parter, so we're going to cover both seeing movies for free via advanced screenings and also buying movie tickets in bulk for a high discount off the regular price. Advanced screenings are a way for movie studios to promote a movie before it comes out by showing that movie to critics and part of the general population. If you know how, you can be part of that general population and see movies before they are released. And the best part is it doesn't cost you a dime. I use a website called advancedscreenings.com, which aggregates many different screenings in one place. In fact, I don't even have to visit the website because they allow you to sign up for notifications in your local area, and I get an email every time a new screening is announced. If the movie sounds interesting and the time works with our schedule, I'll click through the email to get the free tickets. It's as easy as that. The catch, as with many quote-unquote free things in life, is that you'll have to pay with your time. They heavily overbook these events, and it's first come, first served to get in the door. The ticket you redeemed is only good enough to get you in the line. We usually end up going about an hour before the movie starts, which is often enough time to get pretty good seats, but this will vary depending on the popularity of the movie. Waiting in line is a good chance to read a book or catch up on your favorite podcast, like this one. In addition, larger cities are much more likely to have a variety of screenings compared to smaller cities, but it doesn't hurt to check regardless of where you live. The second part of this multi-part movie life hack is buying movie tickets in bulk. You're most likely to benefit from this if you're going to the movies regularly or have a larger family. The hack is that many of the big movie chains, including Regal and AMC, each allow you to buy movie tickets in bulk at a steep discount. These are targeted at businesses to buy tickets for their employees, but there is no restriction on simply buying them for yourself. The price per ticket works out to be less than $9 each after tax and shipping. The value will of course depend on where you live and your local movie ticket prices, but the discount can work out to be 50% or more if you live in a high cost of living area. The catch is that you truly have to buy in bulk, which means purchasing at least 50 at a time. But the good news is that these tickets never expire. They work with almost all movies and showtimes, but be sure to check the restrictions on the specific tickets before buying. You can either use them yourselves over time because they never expire, or you could even consider splitting a bulk purchase with friends and family so everyone can save money on movie tickets without having too many extras lying around at any given time. We do this ourselves with Regal tickets, and it saves us over $5 per ticket, so over $10 each and every time we go to the movies. It's about 40% off compared to the standard price of movie tickets here in Seattle. While buying in bulk is the cheapest way I've found to get discount movie tickets on a per-ticket basis, you can also purchase them in much smaller quantities from stores like Sam's Club and Costco. The price won't be quite as low as buying in bulk, but it will still be a solid discount off going directly to the box office. The actionable tips today are to first check advancedscreenings.com and sign up for notifications if you want to attend free movie screenings. Second, if you take a look at how much you've spent on movies in the past year or so and crunch the numbers on whether or not buying discount tickets in bulk or otherwise makes sense for your own situation. Thanks, Brad and Jonathan, and have a good weekend, everybody.
Brad, it strikes me that if you were to buy those movie tickets in bulk, based on your current attendance of movie screenings, that would last from the time that your daughters were born until they're 18.
Yeah, maybe 100 at this rate. We very rarely go to the movies, but yeah, for people who do, this is a wonderful hack. So thank you, Noah.
I hear Zootopia 2 is coming to a theater near you.
Yeah, my kids did like the first one, so who knows? That could be could be the first movie in the theater in a while.
All right. And we got one more voicemail from you, and this is from Nicholas. And I thought this was really encouraging because it strikes me that while it may seem somewhat overwhelming how much information there is to learn about personal finance, it's also amazing how quickly you can learn enough to feel confident about the path that you've chosen. And I think this voicemail will perfectly illustrate that point.
Hey guys, it's Nicholas. Very first thing I have to say is thank you for the Simple Path to Wealth giveaway. I've got my blue highlighter, just the one, and I'm really looking forward to tearing into it. So the last, 5-6 weeks since I found you guys, it's just been a total whirlwind. I've made so many changes in a short period of time, and I have so many more changes coming. I feel compelled to share every little win with you, which is totally unrealistic. But I just got a letter in the mail that I'm really pumped to share with you. So I got a fund replacement letter from the 403B I contribute to, and it lists the discontinued fund as Vanguard Institutional Index Institutional, and the new fund as Vanguard Institutional Index Institutional Plus. The expense ratio today is 0.04, and the new expense ratio is going to be 0.02. And I'm just beaming as I'm reading this letter because one, I understand what it means. I understand what a low expense ratio looks like. Before these were just numbers to me. And because I've been tearing through episodes from the beginning, I remember perfectly, Brad, you sharing the fact that you happen to be leaving money in a 401k with a prior employer because it had such a low expense ratio. And I think it was 0.02. So I'm reading this and I'm like, wow, exactly what happened to Brad is happening to me. And I'm going to take advantage of this by moving all my money into this new fund at this super low expense ratio. So I'm really pumped about that and wouldn't have done anything about this. This letter would have been just filed away and I would have made no change, right? As early as 6 weeks ago. So thank you for that. I do have a question. When we're talking about travel rewards, I haven't heard any discussion about when everyone is closing these cards. And really how that's affecting your average age of credit on your credit score. A lot of cards I'm leaving open because I can continue to get value from them. But a good example of closing a card are the Southwest Premium and Plus cards that I opened maybe a year ago to get the Companion Pass. They both have an annual fee, so I obviously closed one as I didn't need two of them going forward. I don't fret over soft or hard inquiries on my credit, but my average age of credit on my credit score is just under 5 years. Credit Karma says that that's a bit low and that average age of credit is a medium impact on your score. So I'd just love to hear your guys' thoughts on average age of credit, how often you both close cards, or if you even worry about it. Thank you so much, guys. I just look forward to every new episode, and I'm really excited to be caught up on all episodes. Thanks.
Yeah, Nicholas, that is a fantastic voicemail. And I just love that you're taking action. You said, I think you found it 5 to 6 weeks ago, and you're already making these moves and just learning all these new things. And I loved that your situation was exactly the same with the 401k. I mean, that is precisely the exact same fund that my old company's 401k offered. And yeah, you're exactly right. We kept our money in our old 401k instead of rolling it out to an IRA that we'd have control over, because the fund that I have access to through my old company is a slightly better version of VTSAX. So it's the institutional shares and it has a slightly lower expense ratio. So there was no real incentive to roll that out to my own IRA. So yeah, I'm glad to hear A, that you have something similar, and B, most importantly, that you open that up, you read it, and you understand it. And you're taking that action and educating yourself. And that's going to help in every aspect of your financial life.
And it struck me that sense of peace and of control that you get just by understanding how this game is played. So many people that haven't benefited from finding, a show like ours or a community like ours, finding this concept and understanding the rules, you kind of are just hoping that everything's going to be okay when you reach 60. You don't exactly know how it's going to be okay, but your peers, some of them have done all right. And you're just kind of hoping you're on the right path. But when you find a concept like financial independence and you latch onto it, it only takes 5 or 6 weeks, long before you ever get to FU money, you get your personal capital phone call, long before you ever get to 25 times your annual expenses. It only takes 5 or 6 weeks for you to suddenly understand, wow, I'm on the right path. And from here on out, it's just a function of the math. You've taken charge and taken control of what you actually have control over. And at this point, now the math starts to work for you. And the continuum that we talked about earlier is continuing to give you more and more power and control over your destiny. I'm making it very Star Wars-esque, but may the force be with you, Nicholas. May the force be with you.
And yeah, to touch on your question about credit cards, I think you answered a lot of it, honestly, which was, what are you getting value out of? So it's certainly not my place to tell you whether to close a credit card or not, but are you getting value out of that card going forward? I think you said you had 2 Southwest cards, so I assume maybe you were going for the Companion Pass, and you determined that you weren't going to use both those cards going forward, but that you were going to keep one of them. So I would assume maybe you made the decision based on which one had the lower annual fee to keep open, or who knows? That is certainly your personal decision. But I think for everyone out there, it's just, are you getting value out of that card? So I think that's how I view it. There are many cards that offer anniversary bonuses. I know many of the hotels give you a free night at your anniversary date for that credit card. So that can more than offset, and in many cases, multiples of the annual fee in value there. So you might make the decision to keep open a card like a hotel card. Or I think the Southwest cards actually offer an anniversary bonus in Southwest miles. So you can certainly get value there. If you have points sitting in a transferable program and you don't want to transfer them out before you close a card, well, then you keep it open because you're getting value from having those transfer options. So I think that's how you mentally have to approach it. And again, it's not my place to tell you to close a card or not. It's just, this is how I approach the decision. And as far as how it impacts your credit score, I have found very minimal impact, if any, when I close cards. I think the most important piece of advice that I would give to you is to not close your oldest credit cards. So if you've had cards for a number of years, just predating learning about travel rewards or anything like that, just do not close those cards. I think the only consideration is if you're paying a significant annual fee, maybe you can call up the credit card company and ask them to downgrade you to a certain card that would preserve your credit history on that card, but would not have an annual fee associated with it. You know, in general terms, for cards that you're not using on an ongoing basis, you don't really want to pay an annual fee. So that would be something I would factor in. But I have found very minimal impact on the credit score. I obviously don't work for the credit bureaus, so I don't know precisely how their calculations work. But I did find an article on the Points Guy called How Closing Cards Impacts Your FICO Score. And I'm going to include that in the show notes to this episode. So I think that gives you some flavor for it. But their bottom line, and I'm going to quote here, is closing a credit card account won't affect your average age of accounts for your FICO score too significantly, especially if you open another one to keep utilization rates stable. That said, keeping your oldest accounts open is definitely a good idea. So yeah, that certainly echoes exactly what I said. So again, that'll be linked up in the show notes, and I think it'll certainly give you a little bit more information if you're looking for it.
All right, guys. Well, unfortunately, that is going to bring this episode to a close. We like to finish every episode by doing a drawing for a copy of a book that we have found useful. And currently, we have 2 books. One is J.L. Collins' book, The Simple Path to Wealth, and the other is Dominic Cortuccio's book, Design Your Future. We featured J.L. 2 times on the show, both in episode 19 and in episode 34. And Dominic Cortuccio came on the show in episode 33, Design Your Future, which was a very, very highly regarded episode by our community. So we have offered this up to you guys. It's just kind of like this win-win virtuous circle where all you have to do to enter the drawing is go to choosefi.com/iTunes and leave us a short written review. And then you would just send us a email to feedback@choosefi.com letting us know that you did leave the review and what screen name you left it under. And then every week on Friday, we announce the winner for that drawing, and we do 1 book for every 5 written reviews that we get. And it's a way that you are putting your stamp of approval on the show and saying, I'm getting value from ChooseFI. And at the same time, it's a way that we can help you guys out and get you material that we think will help you and you will find useful. Today, Brad, how many winners do we have today?
All right, Jonathan, today we have 1 winner, and the winner is Carolyn.
And Carolyn says, super pleased with this podcast. This is currently my favorite podcast. These guys have a positive energy that leaves me inspired. And as many of the reviewers mentioned, they offer great actionable tips. FIRE does not just have to be for those earning a high income. While the math says extreme early retirement is based on your savings rate, it's easy to get discouraged if you don't even make an average salary, quote unquote. And or if, like me, your home, family, and friends are all in a higher cost of living area and you can't imagine leaving the ones you love. Don't worry, these guys have you covered. I've found some great frugal tips that I've already started to implement that make a significant impact financially on my own journey to FIRE without feeling like I'm losing anything or depriving myself. The hosts have a great natural communication style and bounce off each other well. They also cover important FIRE topics in an in-depth way, teaching their audience the tools they need to forge their FIRE paths. As others have said, these guys are palatable and smart. I feel I can share this podcast with friends who can't fathom FIRE because they can't see how it can be done. These guys are lighting the way. Carolyn, thank you so much for that feedback. It is absolutely appreciated. Thank you for being a part of the ChooseFI community. If you want to support us, here are 4 easy ways. 1, leave us an iTunes review. If you want to do that, just go to ChooseFI.com/iTunes. 2, use our page to sign up for travel credit cards. If you want to travel the world with miles and points instead of your hard-earned dollars, then just go to ChooseFI.com/cards and get started today. 3, if you're working on the milestones of FI, set up a personal capital account to track your progress and use our affiliate link. It's completely free and just go to ChooseFI.com/PC. P as in Paul, C as in cat. And 4, and most importantly, find your friends, coworkers, and family members who might be open to this message and tell them about the podcast. Have them start with episode 38, The Why of FI, and right behind that, have them go listen to episode 21, The Pillars of FI. It is a fantastic starting place. The fire is spreading, my friends. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to ChooseFI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.